Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I'm your host, Daniel Dauphin.
I think the first eye exam I ever had when I was younger, he said I had 20/10 or something, like really good vision. But then as I got older, I couldn't see up close. And then it went farther and farther away. So finally at the end, I was wearing like 1.25 readers all the time, just because to see, driving and everything out there. So, and then it was getting so bad I was wearing 3.0 readers for reading up close. So now I'm not going to have to wear any glasses. So pretty cool. But
Except for aviators, right? Because you are a pilot, and so you're obligated by contract to wear aviators at
they
least 8
they
hours a week or something. Is that right?
Well, you have to be wearing them while you're flying. So, but they give you a little the eye doctor gives you a little sticker you put on your license that says you no longer have, your sight. You don't have to wear, or you're already wearing them. They're already in your eyeball. So it's like you're the bionic man. So
Yeah, very
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I know you like to have a sponsor, a sponsor for these
Uh-huh.
calls, and I found a really good sponsor. Our sponsor is Oddcast. So, are you tired of those boring, superficial, uh, short form or long form podcasts that go on forever and ever asking the same old question? Well, now you can enjoy Oddcasts, and this is our inaugural Oddcast. You thought Warwick Schiller was asking odd questions. Well, welcome to Oddcast. That's our sponsor.
I love it.
uh,
That's,
so, pardon?
are you going to trademark that?
No.
I think that works pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, Oddcast. Oddcast.com. Okay. Well, I do have a list of questions here, the kind of questions that you ask in your podcast, sorry. Because they get pretty interesting, and it's not all always the same old questions. So I'm going to ask you some of the questions I'm going to ask you are going to be the same old questions, and there might be some other questions that kind of get into like who's the real Daniel Dauphin, that kind of get down and dig deep. When I was doing Warwick
Hmm.
Schiller, a podcast with Warwick Schiller, he just wouldn't let go. He's just like, if I just said one little wrong thing, answer to a question that wasn't you know, what he wanted to hear, he'd keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's not gonna be that bad. But anyways, just so is there
Have
any
at it.
is okay. Um well, first I'm gonna just ask you the normal questions that you normally ask when you're interviewing something and find out all about them is how old were you when you were born?
I was approximately 6.3 micrometers. So that's a measurement used in Mercury. I was born in the house of Mercury under the seventh moon. So I
Oh,
think
okay.
that's the proper way to, yeah.
Okay. And so you have an engineering background, right?
I do. Yes, sir.
So
I
that
was
makes
two
sense that you
years
were
in
born in
college.
however microns that was. At least you knew what they were. So,
That's correct. Yeah, with a good micrometer, not ever to be used as a set punch or anything like that. That's true.
right. To scratch your back or anything.
Uh-huh. Correct.
Yeah, what kind of engineering did you get into, or what path were you going on?
I was in mechanical.
Hmm.
So I like machines and wheels and gears and pulleys and cams and
Uh-huh.
levers and wedges and all of those sorts of things. So that was the track that I was on. I've never been as much on the like the electrical side of physics, the ohms and resistors and all of those.
Hmm.
That never interested me much, and neither did space astronomy and
You couldn't even see those
you know
things.
the
You can't see those
yeah
little
the Neil
things.
deGrasse Tyson side of astrophysics and all has
Hmm.
never interested me very much either. So
But mechanical engineering must come in handy, like if you're thinking in terms of biomechanics of the horse and how the horse moves. And I mean,
mhm.
at least you have a start. Like biomechanics are a lot of it is about leverage um and another question I have for you. Well, before we go any farther in this, this is this is actually your podcast that I'm hijacking. So the people that are listening to this or watching this know who you are. But can you go over that real quick? Just like who is Daniel Dauphin, the horseman?
I'm the seventh son of a seventh son of a seventh son, born on a mountain in Tibet. Um,
Mhm.
so no,
I got to take notes here. Okay,
all right,
go
I was
ahead.
seventh son of seventh son of
Seven,
seventh son. Um,
seven.
born on a mountain in Tibet under the house, seventh moon of Mercury, of course.
Okay,
No, I
doing the
was,
math. I'm doing the math here. So hold on.
yeah, we'll go seven factorial. So that's seventh son of seven seventh sons.
Yeah, so I'm
So
just
I
doing
was,
7 by 7 by 7.
yeah.
And then
Um,
the seventh house is okay, 343. Got it.
uh So born, meant to be special and all of that
Okay.
stuff, as my grandmother tells me every
Mhm.
time I see her. Um, Dad was a banker. I was kind of teenage rebellion was the cowboy thing for me. So that was certainly not the path. I was supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like
Uh-huh.
that, more
Mhm.
academic. But always I liked more tangible things working with my hands. I have the academic chops too, but I can't. The sitting behind a desk looking at a computer for 8 hours a day is, I would rather fight a bear than do
Mhm.
that. Although ironically, I do more of that now than I ever would have thought to. Um, so got into the horse thing and all of that, and had some. I had my first customer was quite by accident. I had gone to college. I had a horse there, and this guy had a horse across the street. And he bought a mare that wound up accidentally being pregnant. So it was around Christmas time. They wake up, and here's a foal born in the round pen to the mare that they didn't know was bred.
Yeah.
So that it coincided. He was two at the same time I was ready to go to college. So he decided he would pay me $300 to break this colt for him, and his
Mhm.
family had given him the John Lyons VHS DVD or VHS cassette tapes. So he
Yeah.
let me watch those, and I watched those, and then I put the horse in the round pen, and I did the whole deal, and it all worked out pretty cool, and
Mhm.
set me on a path, and I've been playing
Yeah.
with horses and doing my best ever since.
Yeah,
So
well, like when you're just working with horses, you're not behind a desk a lot. But when you start working with people with horses, and you start
yeah,
reaching out to more and more people, then you got to stay organized, and then you spend more time, at the computer, keeping track of things. So,
yep.
and then on top of that, you have an online program too on bits. I mean, beyond being, I mean, you did end up kind of being a doctor because you're kind of like a bit doctor. So,
Well, I I would say, yeah, my so if I don't normally say this, but technically, with all of the research and work and stuff that I did on the original bit video project, that was kind of the equivalent of a PhD
hmm
thesis kind of a thing. Wasn't within
yeah,
the realm, but I mean that was a 3 year long,
yeah,
thousands of hours project,
yeah,
that involved a lot of research and experimentation and all of that stuff, and so I keep kind of building on it. I see a real need for it. It doesn't seem to be real popular yet. Maybe at some point the worm will turn on that a little bit, and people will realize that they need to know more of this than they do. But for the time being, we have a strong, small, loyal following,
yeah.
looking to become a medium-sized following at some point.
Yeah, well, you got to get a stick at it, because when I went through similar things, started working on horses, doing body work, and it was hard because there was a lot of competition, and I was working on hunter jumpers and show horses, and there was a lot of competition, other massage therapists and other things going on out there, chiropractors and other modalities and other machines and things, and it was kind of discouraging because, I'd go down to Wellington and Ocala for the season, and I'd slowly like adding a horse here, a couple of horses there, a few more here, losing one or two there as clients. And Conley, my wife said, because I was getting pretty discouraged, and she said, you need to be the last man standing. You just stick with it because if you love doing what you're doing and you feel like there's a need for it, you just got to stick with it because other people they're going to drop off when they get discouraged. But if you stick with it, then it's pretty soon it starts to gain momentum, and then it
Yeah.
goes. So what you're doing is important, and you obviously don't hate it. So
No,
Yeah.
I see the need of it. You've been like you gave me the opportunity in Phoenix earlier this year. We did the 2 hours worth of talks with the PowerPoint, and then we got the live horse in the
Yeah.
arena with the rider, and we also have an audience of people that are pretty trained at seeing tension and relaxation and all of that. So like that was as prime a group as I could have possibly asked for to
Mhm.
make some changes on this horse, and the people recognize the
Yeah.
changes. And then we did it again in England. So
Yeah.
I feel like when I can get in front of people and show them, you
Yeah.
know, it's just most people
Uh,
think that they know enough or there isn't really a problem here. So it's not, they don't see it as the low hanging fruit
right.
that
Mhm.
that it is.
Yeah,
So
well, you were already experienced horseman when you started doing the, got interested in bits. But why bits? Did you just see something that just triggered? Wow, we got to, educate some people out there, or one instance, or
so that started
I'm doing the Warwick Schiller thing. I'm not letting anything get
yeah
by. So, okay.
so I got invited to be in a colt starting competition at a expo here in Louisiana about 12 or 13, 14 years ago, something like that. And I had been given some lessons and stuff, but really like being a clinician hadn't occurred to me. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden I'm kind of in this spot, and I was like, well, if I'm going to go with it, I'm going to go with it. So I started
Mhm.
a YouTube channel and all of that. And I thought I needed like some bona fides because I don't have the name recognition or anything. So if someone's going to search me and find me, then here would be some hardcore, pretty hard to refute information I'm going to put out there that you're not going to hear in other places and so forth. And I chose bits because I felt like that was an area I had some insight in because of the engineering background.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those areas that is just filled with myths and misinformation. And it's really hard to get a bead on what's right and what's real versus what's bad
Yeah.
information. And so I
Yeah.
figured I would start that. And they were actually pretty successful. And so then I'm kind of looking for a niche because within this horsemanship world, I mean, it's when I send out letters to expos and stuff to be a presenter, I always put my name's Daniel Dauphin. I'm one of the 1,284,316 horsemanship clinicians because there's so many people out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
noise right now. It's pretty hard to distinguish yourself in that. Like, hi, you're the 893rd person to offer to do a trailer loading demonstration for us this year,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like there's only so many.
Yeah.
So I figured bits would be a niche, and I've kind of been following it since. And honestly, I've always been like attracted to bits. I mean, they are simple machines. And I have a natural affinity for that stuff and the
Mhm.
design and the aesthetics of them, and the way you can change balance and affect the horse if you recognize what all is at play there. There's
Yeah.
definitely some artistry to it that is beyond the flowers and
Yeah, well,
carvings on the
yeah, well,
jeans.
there's some beautiful bits out there, but that's the shiny part of it. The
Hmm.
like we're most of us are just guessing when it comes to bits, what's best and what's not best. As horse owners or not professionals. And I guess if a professional, rider, they'll use maybe what is going to get them results in the moment riding the horse. But
Yeah.
there, as we know from in the body work field, there's a lot more going on than what's happening in the moment to the horse, long-term effects and things. So I can see. So it is needed, but yeah, and it I mean from from what I've learned watching your demonstrations and presentations is like it's an eye opener, And I'll tell a story here. So I met you at the Best Horse Practices Summit in Lexington a few years ago. I don't remember when it was, right? And so here's this
2022.
2022.
Yes, sir.
So here's this good old boy, from Louisiana, cowboy up there, um, going to talk about bits, and thinking, well, yeah, how much leverage are we going to be using now? And then the first thing you said, like you asked a question, um, other than it being entertaining, the thing that got my attention, you asked the question like, where's the first point of input or contact that the horse feels the input from the rider? Where's the first? And the answer was the lip, that soft tissue there. It wasn't the bars, wasn't the palate, it wasn't anything. It was the lip. So I thought, oh, this guy knows about softness. So then I paid attention to what you had to say, apart from the fact that it was entertaining.
Yeah, I have that compulsive tick of humor in
Yeah.
there. I have to stay,
Well,
when I've given the same speech a dozen times, I get bored. So I have to throw some
mhm.
stuff in there that I can look
what
forward to and keeps me awake as
whatever
well.
pop yeah, whatever pops into your head in the moment. So there might be,
Yeah,
because it relaxes people, and they don't feel like, they're that you have to they have to know, you know what I mean. It relaxes them. This guy,
yeah.
this is a normal, ordinary person. He's not going to judge me, because I don't know something or whatever. So um but I do have to clear up one thing that you said here. So when you first started out for this and this guy had ended up with a baby, you said something about the occult. You were occult starting. Are you into the occult? Is
Yeah,
there another side to this?
we definitely, I like to sacrifice 3 rams before I
Hmm.
get started in the
Yeah.
round pen. Nowadays
Okay.
with expos, we do that, behind the scenes. The crowd
Yeah.
doesn't need to see that. But you'll notice at every expo I'm at, there's always a mutton bar. And so
Hmm.
if you're going to have a
Okay.
kebab later on,
Hmm.
you can thank me for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's where that was. And is that a mutton bar bit too? Is they have a mutton bar bit?
So there's mullen mouths. I don't
Uh-huh.
know about mutton bars,
Okay.
but we could try that. We could put some
Okay.
big chinks on there and then call it the mutton buster. How
Hmm.
about that? Patented
That work.
trademark. I think we
That
could partner on that, Jim. Yeah, we
okay.
could, and that
We'll
would
make
keep you in
no.
body work for a long time.
I'm sure we'll make millions.
I think, or at least dozens.
Okay. Now that we cleared that occult question up. But and another thing you said, you didn't start out to be a clinician, and Mark Rashid tells a similar story. He just had a way with horses, and people would ask him to help with a horse, and then somebody else would come and ask him to help with a horse, and then pretty soon people were sitting around watching, and then pretty soon he realized he was doing clinics. So kind of sounds like your story. You didn't start out that way, but
It it's a little bit, yeah. Like I'll have to say, and I don't know if this was because of the John Lyons tapes or
Mhm.
what, but like when I got a job in college. It wasn't my first horse job. It was kind of like the fourth, but I was working for a cutting horse trainer, starting all of his colts, and he didn't just train cutting horses. He took in a lot of, like, if you'd have paid him for me to break a cow, I'd have had a cow in the round pen. He just whatever you wanted to send him and would pay for, he would throw me on the back of.
Mhm.
So I got in the habit in my head when I was working those horses or mules or whatever they were in the round pen. I was always explaining what I was doing, like I
Yeah.
had a crowd there.
Hmm.
I can't say I really intended ever to have a crowd there, but I was kind of always going through the that in my head. And I don't really do that anymore. I don't know when that stopped or why it ever started. So maybe there was some kind of seed that went stagnant for a while on
Hmm.
on the teaching side of it. But no, it
Yeah.
wasn't. Because honestly, like among the horse trainer world, I apprenticed for 6 years. Clinicians are generally looked down upon by horse trainers. They're not revered in any way, shape, or
Hmm.
form. They're kind
Yeah.
of the if you can't do, teach, sort of
Yeah.
thing. So
Hmm.
that wasn't the world that I came from. There's none of the guys I work for are like jumping up and down going, I'm so proud of you, you know, anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like don't don't tell my mother I'm a clinician. She thinks I'm a piano player in a house of ill
Hmm.
repute. So.
Exactly.
So, well, that's interesting. I never thought of that, but I'm a clinician now too. So I don't know what that says, but I do the same thing when I'm working on a horse. I talk my way through it. Just whoever's there watching, the owner or whatever. I just talk. I don't just do the work. I talk my way through it. What I'm doing, because I want them to learn. I want them to possibly be able to pick up a few things. I might change their way of thinking or working with the horse. Just hearing how what's going on and seeing stuff happen. So,
Yeah.
um, and
And I do think I have a natural proclivity for teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, horses isn't the only, like I used to be heavily involved in the Boy Scouts. I've done knot tying, teaching, cast
Mhm.
iron cooking, teaching on a
Mhm.
lot of different topics. So
Yeah.
it's not just the horse thing. That's kind of in my nature to try to help people, give them some tips.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
this you might try doing this instead of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without pushing it. I'm the same way. I just like to share stuff with people, and it's easy to do when like you're just have that. It's easy to do. It's just easy to
Hmm.
talk your way through what you're doing or explain what you're doing. And so yeah, well, that's good. So anyways, let's get back. Where were we? Yeah, it was where you what got you started in bits, um and it is a needed thing, and it is, and like you said, it is, you've done a lot of research on it. And I mean, I can think right now of Anita Para out there at Happy Dog Ranch in California. Have you been out there?
I have not. I've heard the name, but I've not met
Oh,
her. No,
okay.
sir.
Well, she hosts the when Mark and I do clinics out there, and then Connie and I just spent 2 months out there because we've become good friends with her and she and her husband, and she has a new horse, and the horse just seems, there is a question about the bit. It's no matter what she puts in his mouth. He's a youngster, and he was pretty. Uh, he came from Europe already with quite a bit of training on him, and he was only
Oh
5.
yeah.
So I'm going to put you two together because that was her the other day she was on the phone. That was her question. No matter what she puts in his mouth, he's really working it. And so yeah, sorry, I just popped into my head.
No,
So
I'll just for anybody wondering, turmeric suppository is the real question right there. Kind of like the atlas and the sacrum are
uh-huh.
connected, right? Like,
Hmm.
so if you have a mouthy horse, turmeric, so just the whole root, about a thumb size piece of it, just right up the old
Oh,
extra
the other
hole
end.
there, and yep, and it'll
So
it'll fix them right up. So
it will. Okay, good.
have I mentioned, Jim, that
Everybody try that at home.
I have been officially sponsored by the American Society Simplifying and Exemplifying Sarcasm, or ASSES.
Oh,
They're
okay.
one of my major sponsors. Yeah. So
Okay.
just in case we have,
S's.
I am sometimes shocked that there are people out there that don't get sarcasm, and so I feel like I need a little warning label on
Yeah, you need
occasion.
to put a
So
little disclaimer at the bottom, along the bottom here. Do not try this at home. This
yeah.
is
So
sarcasm. You can try sarcasm, just don't try the turmeric suppository.
there you go.
Yeah, you really shouldn't do anything on your horse that you wouldn't do on yourself first, anyways, right?
Yeah. Try it on yourself first. Absolutely. So.
Yeah. So, so you were in horses while you were in college, then? I mean, since you were a youngster.
Yeah, I had a friend that had horses, so I've been riding since I was about 9. And
Hmm.
then when I was about 14, he got his license, and we started riding pretty much every day.
Hmm.
And then when I was maybe a year later, 15 or 16, I bought my own horse and kept it out at their place. And so now we didn't have, there was no instructions, no lessons. We didn't have a clue what
Hmm.
we were doing. We thought riding good was going from point A to point B without falling off. And, but we had a whole lot of fun, and we rode all over. I even, so I'm from a rural area, but like the last day of school, senior year, I rode my horse to school, tied him up behind the
Hmm.
gym all day, and rode him
Hmm.
back,
Yeah,
and all.
right
So
on.
yeah, I put a
Yeah,
jillion miles on my
yeah.
horses, but had no, didn't know leads or
Right.
any of that
Hmm.
stuff. We were just having really good time. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, and I grew up that same way, getting from A to B and doing it fast,
mhm.
too. And it wasn't until I got, started grooming the hunter jumpers, and the trainer, the gal was younger than me, but I went to work for her, grooming him hauling him to the shows and grooming him. Uh, and she was coming. Somebody said, "Oh, does Jim ride?" And she said, "Yeah, but he's pretty green, And I was 50 something at the time, and my first horse was when I was 11. So, but I was pretty green, and I remember thinking, green. And I remember now I look at it and think, yeah, I was pretty green. I
Mhm.
really hadn't learned anything. I just learned how to be around them, and that's all, safely and have fun. So I know what you mean.
Well, you're not green on the ground, or at least I didn't know you when you were 50, but at 78, I mean, you obviously know where to stand and everything to not get kicked and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
at
Well,
78, the ripe old age
yeah,
that you are now.
I haven't been seriously kicked. I think when I was younger, I got kicked right in the bread basket. You know,
Hmm.
they were feeding, they threw out hay for the horses and they were all eating. And I came up behind the horse that I was riding at the time. That was this lady that she let me ride her horse. And his name was Lucky, beautiful quarter horse. And he just kicked out right in the breadbasket here. And I went flying backwards and I'm laying on the ground gasping for air. And it's funny because he turned around and came over to me. He just kicked by reflex, something's behind him. And I was
Hmm.
there. And then he came over and, but other than that, and I think my point is that when you're really paying close attention to the horse, you're paying really close attention to the horse's behavior. You start to notice things before they start to bother the horse, just when they start to bother the horse. And so, when we teach our clinics, um, we have people on the weekend clinic, and a lot of them have a lot of experience with horses, and some don't have much experience with horses. But they're down there holding the hind leg, squatted down next to the horse, and they're doing the scapularly standing in front of the horse. They're in these positions that normally, horses would be a little bit scared of that. And the people, but from the very beginning, we're teaching them to watch the horse's eye, notice when something's going on. And I think it's not so much that the human's doing it well, but the horse knows that the human is paying attention. Once the horse gets that you're paying attention, they'll relax around you. So a lot of that, it's just paying attention to the horse. And then not only that relaxes the horse. So it's even safer. We had a student in Europe, and she was in an osteo school for horses, and got in front, and we're doing the scapularly standing in front of the horse and holding the foot. And she said in her school osteo school, they would fail you for putting yourself right in front of the horse under in that position if the horse were to strike out. And where
Hmm.
we have people, that are just there for a couple hours after, like, Saturday afternoon, they're doing scapular releases, and the horses are fine and they're fine with it. So it's just tuning and paying attention to the horse relaxes them.
You and that process, you've actually been a bit of an inspiration for an online course that I'm working on that'll come out later this year in 2025. But it's
All right,
basically
enough with the sarcasm.
no, I'm serious here. And it's on building rapport because
Okay.
I think that's an often overlooked step
Mhm.
with people. And just like you can go play with a horse for 5 minutes and that horse accepts you and they relax around you. And when
Mhm.
that's done, now you have the keys to the castle. You can now do
Yeah.
things and get away with things that you shouldn't have done 5 minutes ago. But
Yeah.
now it's okay because you've got to have an in with that
That's a
horse.
good
I think that
online. Yeah, that's a good topic for an online course. That's like the fundamentals, right? The
mhm,
basics of working with a horse. So,
it should be. And then like I've seen this with other body workers, some vets particularly, because often they're fixing to do something that's actually painful with the horse. But the good ones, you can see they can walk up there and
mhm.
within 30 or 45 seconds, there'll be a change that occurs. And now they can do things they couldn't have, but they'll take that little bit of time
Just that
and
little bit.
address,
Yeah.
yeah, and it makes a world of difference.
Hmm.
And I think it's probably like a less than 1% of people are even aware that that step
Is
exists and that
there.
they
Yeah,
should,
that step
yes,
exists even. Yeah.
yeah, they should spend time there and it's super important and has a,
Hmm.
I've seen you were talking about you being called green as a 50, I've seen people that owned a horse for 5 years and have never built, they don't have a rapport with the horse yet,
Hmm.
you know, and so
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
that's, yeah,
Uh,
so like that's, hey, I'm having all kinds of problems. I know, but have you ever tried just meeting this horse you've owned for 5 years for the first
mhm.
time? I bet
Yeah.
it'll help a lot, right?
Yeah, now sometimes all people need are a few steps, like they just don't know what they don't. We don't know what we don't know. But sometimes just, if I'm working on a horse for a client and I'll just hold the lead rope, let it be nice and loose, and I'll start talking to the owner and the horse will relax. The horse just, when you both come in there, the horse is like, now what? And then when the horse sees, oh, they're just talking, I'm not anthropomorphizing or however you say it, but then when the horse gets, oh, there's no pressure on me, then the horse will relax just from talking to the owner about the horse. And then you go to work on the horse is nice and relaxed. So it's almost that do nothing thing is sometimes
Hmm.
all the horse really needs. And
Yes, sir. Could be the
and
most important step. Absolutely.
yeah, and it meshes in with Dr. Peters, the horse's brain, neuroscience. It meshes in with that. The horse, like their whole thing is like, is it safe? That's the first thing on every horse's mind is it safe? And we might think, oh, they look safe. They look like they don't feel worried. They're not worried, but on the inside, that's their instinct is it safe? And all of a sudden, when there's no pressure on them, then they go from that sympathetic and they go down to this parasympathetic, just taking the
I,
pressure off.
I think that's actually, I have two young sons, and you were just talking about, getting people that haven't spent a lot of time with a horse to be able to stand right in front or behind working the leg and all.
Mhm.
I am constantly trying to remind myself that the risk part of their brain doesn't fully develop till they're about 25. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the problems young people with horses kind of has the
Mhm.
connotation we would all think about hot rods and doing wild, dangerous stuff. The horse is automatically born with that risk thing fully developed, and the person doesn't get in until they're 25 to 30. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can't reconcile the way you think with the way they think at all
Oh
until
yeah,
you have
yeah.
some time, because
Yeah.
they view the entire world through risk and safety, and you don't
Hmm.
believe anything can hurt you at all. And so,
Hmm.
it's hard to empathize with or understand an animal that you're
Yeah.
coming at it from such a different angle until you
Hmm.
get old enough, and then you
Yeah.
you can,
You're not carrying that vibe or energy or, attitude. So,
hmm
yeah. Okay. Well, I do have some questions here uh, that you commonly ask on some of your interviews.
Okay.
Um, let's see. Name the last book you read.
Ooh, I am it's probably Mark Rashid, considering the horse. I interviewed
Oh,
him
okay.
last week, and so I reread that. I'm usually reading like 4 or 5 books at a time, so
Hmm.
I don't just read one and finish it. I'm kind of
Yeah.
ADD, a little bit all over the place.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, that would be the
Yeah.
last one I finished, I think.
Yeah. That's what I used to do when I read books before I got married, and I had time to read books. I would next to my bed were 4 or 5 books, and I would just read some of this one, some of that one. But and I've heard a lot of older people, my age now, they listen to books more than read them.
Hmm.
And I've noticed that like I used to read in bed before I went to sleep. But now if I try to read in bed, I just fall asleep right away. But I'll
Hmm.
put a book on tape, books on tape on, and I'll listen to the books. So and then I'll fall asleep, and then I'll go back like tomorrow night, find where I fell asleep and pick up from there. So
Yeah. And I,
yeah.
I would have to say I don't do the audiobooks so much. I have done them in the past, but I probably do more podcast listening than anything else now.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's still kind of
Kind
it's
of like that.
self-education.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't if I'm reading a book nowadays, it's almost never fiction. It's more business
Yeah.
or personal development or something. I
Yeah.
have a purpose for reading the book other than bubblegum
Hmm.
for the brain kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Or other
but
than to just go to sleep. But,
yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I'm a
yeah.
kind of head hits the pillow, I'm out
Okay.
sort of
All
person.
right.
So much to my
Um,
wife's chagrin.
yeah.
I can fall asleep with the TV on, the lights on. Doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Um, let's see. If you had to choose one state to drop a nuclear bomb on, or the whole country had to go, what state would that be?
Hmm. What state would that be? The state of denial.
Okay,
How
that's
about
a
that?
good one. You you got out from under that one, all right. Okay. Let's see then. Uh, showers. Why don't you take them?
That's a filthy rumor started by my competition, Jim.
Okay.
So
Uh,
I do have a quirk with showers. I have an outdoor shower, and it is one of my most beloved things. About
uh-huh.
the only time I ever shower inside is if I'm on the road at a hotel or something. If
Okay.
I'm here at home, it's cold showers outside.
Okay.
and
And
I've got rocks.
you haven't gotten any letters from the homeowners association.
No, no,
Okay,
nothing.
good.
You'd have to be in a plane or a helicopter to spot me,
Okay.
I guess. Yeah, but anyway.
Well, that's one
Uh,
nice thing about living in the country. You know, you
mhm.
don't have to you don't have to worry
Yeah,
about
that
anything like taking a leak, you don't have to you just go
yeah,
outside.
absolutely.
Mhm. Okay, here's a serious one. What's been your favorite moment as a professional?
Okay. So I love that you asked this. So one of the great things about the professional side of it is that you do start to get to meet and interact with other professionals. So like I'll have to say here locally, and I mean this in the humblest way possible, I don't really have any peers here.
Hmm.
And so I kind of have to do travel to get to work with and ride with peers. And
Hmm.
so and then not only peers, there are definitely people out there that are more experienced, higher up the food chain and all that stuff. So I have an opportunity to learn from people as well. So
Yeah.
there was one particular interaction where I got to go just kind of I wasn't directly involved in this event. I was just watching, and it was two absolute legends. And one of them I'm a lot more familiar with than the other. And he's out there working a horse. He's mic'd up. I mean, he's doing the demo for the crowd, and I'm just on the peripheral hanging on the fence. And he had just done a bunch of tail releases with the horse. So, I mean, hands all up under there. All right.
Mm.
And I yell at him. I said, Jim, you've got something in your mustache. And this legend of the horse world, he takes his hands that had just been all under this horse's tail, and he does a very thorough job of rubbing his mustache. And I thought he was playing along with me because he's that kind of guy. He's a really
Okay.
good sport.
Some
And then I
people don't.
yelled,
Some people are a little slow.
then I yelled, you missed a spot. And he did it again and wiped even better the second time. And then one of the people from the audience yelled and said, he's just messing with you. But it was, I laugh about that daily pretty much. I wish I had it on video.
Well, that guy didn't. He's that guy is apparently he's a little slow. But as I heard it, you also went like
Yeah,
and
well, eyebrow.
so that knucklehead went like that too, and then until he realized that he was putting on face paint.
So I think that was my favorite moment that I've had out there so far. Yeah,
Okay, well, that was pretty funny. I heard from somebody.
allegedly. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, oh, let's see. What else? What else are you into? Like, what are you doing these days? Like, you're thinking of doing an online thing on repertoire or relation with the horse, or not
Yeah.
rep? What
Yeah.
is it?
So
What was your
rapport, building
rapport?
rapport.
Okay, building
And
rapport.
that really is kind of meant to be, it's like the ideal customer would be, I just got this new horse, and this is kind of a first 4 weeks of fooling with this horse.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like a checklist because we have a lot of people now that are getting horses from rescues and things like that, and we may have an origin that's undetermined. We don't necessarily know what they know or don't know, or we kind of have to figure that out and
Yeah.
check it out. And so it's kind of leading you through that. It's got groundwork and riding, but a lot of body language things to look for. A lot of the so because people tend to want a recipe, but there are so many variables in there. It's really like a tree that branches off. You
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
trunk, but you may have to go off on this other limb or this other limb, just kind of depending. So it's an attempt to kind of flesh that out and not so much to aim at a high performance sort of a thing, just at making sure your solid foundation is intact,
Hmm.
finding the holes, how to fill the holes in if and when you find them. And now
Hmm.
you've got a good basis to go off in whatever direction you
Yeah.
might want to go in. So that'll be something we'll be working on this year. Um,
That kind
I've
of
got
fits in with
another,
your whole adult onset horsemanship
yeah,
program,
it
eh? Yeah.
and I've got a horse that I actually um through an unlucky set of circumstances I own him, but I think he's the perfect horse for that program. He's a quarter horse Tennessee Walker. cross. So he's not a $25,000 reigning prospect that's, gonna do
Yeah.
everything I want without just because
Yeah.
he's bred so well to do it or anything. He actually did hurt a lady, broke her arm. Um, and then I had him in training several years ago. I rode him for a couple of months, and the new owner kind of got in love with him and got to the point where, she could walk out into the pasture to catch him and he would leave the herd to come to her to be caught
Hmm.
and then go ride.
Yeah.
So like it was a best case scenario. And
Hmm.
then that lady was tragically killed in an accident, and her husband wound up giving me the horse. So he's now not been ridden in several years,
Hmm.
and he kind of has that background. So I thought this would be I'll kind of restart him and use him as the prop for
Yeah.
that program, and it'll give him a job and kind of
Hmm.
earn his keep a little bit. But he's also, a horse that needs a little attention, so this will give me an
Yeah.
excuse to to give him
Yeah.
that attention rather than just him hanging out in the pasture for year
Yeah.
after year after year.
Yeah.
Um, we'll be doing another one. The most common set of questions that I get on the bit stuff is about transitioning a horse out of the snaffle into the shank bits. And so I'm going to do a course that's specific to that. So it's really meant to be an addendum to all of the other bit stuff. You need to kind of go through the other stuff first, and then with that knowledge, here will be how we would do that. And I'm kind of try to use 2 or 3 horses, so it won't be you're just going to see one horse taking the path. You'll see I'll have to adjust this for this other horse because its personality is a little different, and
Okay.
and so kind of here's a mix of how that might go. And then I was going to do one on round pinning and groundwork, and that'll be almost exclusively shot with a drone.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like that's the stuff I see most. People will be working a horse and try to lunge him, but where their energy of their body is focused is often in front of the horse, and then they
Hmm.
can't get him to go forward.
Hmm.
So I think the drone shot coming down, showing where your shoulders are really pointed and all,
Hmm.
will be pretty
Well,
instrumental in
yeah,
helping
because you'll
some
be able to
people.
see the change in the horse's trajectory or movement from the air, right? Or
Yes, sir.
as if you step forward towards the horse and you don't even know you're taking a step closer, they might speed up, and then you take a step back and you don't even notice they're slowing, or you don't make the connection. So you'll be yeah, that's a neat idea. You'll be able to make the connection if you're looking at it from
Yeah.
up above. Yeah.
Because we know more about that. Like the example I always use for that is if you're walking down a sidewalk or something and another person's coming towards you,
Mhm.
you don't ever run into them, but you also don't say, "Hey, I'm going to go right and you're going to go left." It's just
Yeah.
a slight tilt of the shoulder or something. It's a cue we don't even recognize,
That's a pretty
but
good parallel. Yeah.
we're doing that all the time, and it's really
Hmm.
the same when you're working a horse. You just have to start consciously being aware of it and now using it to manipulate the horse. And when you become aware of it, you can go to the mall and start lunging people
Yeah.
and make them,
Okay.
I'm going to
Yeah.
try to get these 3 people all to move on the left side of
Yeah.
me, even though they're on the right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just have all kind
Yeah.
of fun, right?
Yeah.
Wreak a
Really.
little havoc.
Yeah. Pretty soon you might have them going around you in circles too.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
calling the cops, one or the other.
Yeah. Well, those sound like worthwhile projects too. So yeah, I'd like to well, you'll let me know when those are available too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, whenever
absolutely.
they are.
Yeah,
That's
they
cool.
should, all of those should be out this year, I think.
Mhm.
Sometimes I overestimate how long it'll take me to edit everything. Or
Yeah.
sometimes, I don't know if you've done a lot of this video kind of stuff, but oftentimes I'm trying to show a specific thing while riding a horse, and actually capturing that moment on camera that could
Hmm.
take 3 weeks of trying to get the same shot until the
Oh,
light
okay.
was right and you actually saw the thing I
Right.
was trying to illustrate. So sometimes
Yeah.
I get stuck on that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, I do too.
anyway,
On editing, I want to get it exactly right, if I'm editing a video of something.
hmm
So, yeah, I know go down that rabbit hole and be there for like 3 days and finally Conley will say, "Hey, just move on." It's good
yeah.
enough. Um, okay, let's see what's going on here. What do you consider your oddest quirk?
Hmm. My oddest quirk. That's an interesting question.
I guess we have to define odd, right?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily use the word odd, but I'm a pretty abnormal guy. I get that. Like when I'm trying to consider marketing or what'll appeal to people and all, I do constantly remind myself that I am not my customer, and that,
Hmm.
I don't need this and this wouldn't appeal to me, but I
Yeah.
am not my customer. This is what that person needs.
And
So
if you did put that in, then you'd have a lot of odd people showing up.
yeah, and I have to say I do have kind of an eclectic crowd. But I like that too. Like if you don't get sarcasm and all that stuff, you're probably not going to follow me for very long. And so I have quite the sense of humor amongst my crowd. And I think you have a similar, like I haven't met any of your people that I didn't immediately like quite a bit as well. So,
Yeah, we
so
attract really good people,
yeah.
in this, that, well, they got, like you said, they got to have a little bit of a sense of humor. And even
Hmm.
the ones that don't, they just take a little training. That's all.
Absolutely. So, so oddest quirk. Um, I don't know. I would say that I am probably far more tuned into minutia about certain things than most people are. Um, and I'm trying to kind of channel that for the benefit of, but like the action chain is the thing you were talking about, where the very first thing
Yeah.
the bit will ever affect is the lip. I feel like I have broken that down to a level that's very obvious that this is how it works, but at the same time is something I've never heard anyone else ever
Hmm.
describe. And I feel
Yeah.
like once it's described to you and you recognize it, it's incredibly helpful. And so that's probably one of my quirkier things, is kind of that level of minutia that I tend to break things down into and get down to like almost the molecular side
Yeah.
of it rather than just this
Yeah.
big sweeping generalization.
You're turning it into a helpful thing, though, instead of being a pain in the butt.
Trying to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying that you're not a pain in the butt, but you're turning those little things down. No, you're not a pain in the butt. Actually, you're a lot of fun to work with and to learn from. So
Well, thank
yeah.
you.
Oh, I had something I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was. That had to do with that. Hmm. No, it flew away. So,
Was it about horse nipples? I also have an odd affinity for male nipples or lack
well,
thereof.
well, yeah. Well, but there was a point to that, right?
Yes.
Because
I felt
yeah.
like that was a gift from God. I thought like
Mhm.
another one of those things. How many of us have hung around underneath a horse and nobody seems to notice that male horses don't have nipples? And
Yeah.
so I thought that was the supreme example of just like the bit stuff that people tend to, they assume they've got the knowledge here. And then if you can just show them one glaringly obvious thing that they never recognized, maybe that opens the door for, oh, well, maybe there is more in here that I'm unaware of, but I think
Yeah.
it's not as solid a ground for me as I assumed that it was
Yeah.
previously.
Because we don't know what we don't know. We
Exactly.
know. Yeah. And so do you want to go through, you want to explain the nipples on the horse?
Yeah, I'll just say it real quick.
Yeah.
I had a cryptorchid earlier this year that I needed to have castrated, and I brought my son. I guess he was probably 11 at that point with me to the vet, and they have him anesthetized. So we have one vet. The wife at this clinic is doing the anesthesia. The vet tech is straddling his chest and holding his front legs because he's flat on his back to
Mhm.
hold him in a position where the undercarriage is available, and then the other
Mhm.
vet's at the back, working on the finding the missing testicle.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to describe to my son all the things that are going on. And this was one, it wasn't super involved, but it probably took almost an hour to do the complete surgery, 45 minutes down. So I run out of things to talk about 20 or 30 minutes in. And here's this horse, he's just spread eagle, both hind legs spread open. And for whatever reason, it dawned on me that he doesn't have an udder or any nipples, and that thought had never crossed my mind before. And then I get to thinking, like, we also raise Brahman show cattle, and whether people know this or not, bulls actually have a small udder with four useless teats right in front of the scrotum. And I get to thinking about other animals, and I really can't think of another example. Like, I'm a guy, I have two nipples. They're useless so far in life, and so I thought that was an oddity. So I asked the vets, and I have two of them right here. They're a captive audience. I always pick their brains when I have that situation. And
Mhm.
I can tell as I ask them, they both look at me, and they're both about my age, mid to late 40s, and we're all looking at each other very much for the first time going, holy crap, they don't have nipples, do they? And so I'm like, okay, well, it's not just me. So we finish up the surgery, and the wife goes in the clinic because now her curiosity's peaked, and she gets on the computer and she starts searching. And it turns out only three male mammalian species don't have nipples, and that is horses, rats, and mice. And it's because in utero, when the fetus is developing in those three species, the testicles and gonads develop before the mammary tissues. And so the body already knows that it's male, and it doesn't
Mhm.
bother to spend energy developing mammary tissues. In all other species, the
It's the other
logistics
way
of that is
around.
reversed. And so we
Oh,
have
okay.
mammary tissues even though we don't need them. And
Oh,
so I thought that was pretty interesting. And I already had kind of a very small um, census there of three people that had been looking at the undersides of horses for 140 years, and none of us had ever noticed it. So I said, well, maybe this will be a little thing I can use to
yeah.
capture attention, and
Hmm.
so far it's been great. So
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of morals to that. There's always something else to learn. Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, well, now
Even
that, oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, even the big test when you had me in England, we had Jillian Higgins there, and her whole thing is anatomy of horses.
Mhm.
And then you had another vet. Um, I am spacing on his name right now.
Tom
There,
Beach,
yes.
Dr.
And so
Beach.
I,
Yeah.
I had posed it to both of them, and even Jillian, who's a world recognized anatomical expert, had not ever made
Mhm.
that connection before either. And so I
Mhm.
was like, oh yeah, this is I'm gonna play this
Yeah.
one string guitar for the rest of my career.
Yeah. 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 That is cool.
Plus, I'm a little irreverent. So if you don't know me and I start a presentation talking about male nipples, you're kind of getting your toe right in the water right from the
Mhm.
start. You have an idea what's coming now. So
Yeah, well, the you floated the idea of a sponsor for this podcast, Bits and Tits, and some of the people here in the office said, no, maybe not, maybe anyway, well, while there's a pause here to give you time to edit, when the time comes, I used to go out with a girl who had three breasts.
okay.
Yeah, she had two kind of up here in the normal place, and she had one right in the middle of her back.
Uh-huh.
She wasn't much to look at, but she was a lot of fun to dance with.
Can I keep
Okay,
that in there, Jim? Is that going
it's
to
up
get
to
you in
you.
trouble?
It can be like okay, now back to our regular programming, or you can keep it in there either way.
I'm keeping that. Absolutely.
Uh, well, yeah. So what else is going on with you? Let's back to like real life.
Well, I mean, we've got those online courses working on. We'll have more expos and that kind of stuff coming this year. So far,
Mhm.
I can only announce about one of them, but
Mhm.
there'll be another best horse practices. It's going to be in Santa Fe this year.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
She asked me if I could make it, but I had something else that weekend.
yep.
So,
And I had
bummer.
that other event you were talking about. I was invited to be a part of that, but I had already committed to the best horse practices. So that April time of year is busy,
It's
busy as far
busy.
as different events going on the same dates and
Oh
all.
yeah, let me look at my calendar here. So, um, stand by, stand by. I'm pretending I'm Joe Rogan. I'm just bringing stuff up and everything.
Young Jamie, look that up for me. Huh?
Yeah, right. Where's my calendar?
Yeah, I know the name of
Computers.
the event. I'm not sure if they have released names if you want to mention
Okay,
that yet or not.
it's in
But
April, right?
yeah, the
It's
first
in.
weekend, fourth, fifth, sixth.
Oh yeah, the Idaho Horse Expo. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the first time I haven't been to that one, but uh, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll I think I volunteered. I'll do that one in 2026 instead, since I
Okay.
had to say no to it this year. But
That's a shame.
yeah,
I'm also looks like at the Western States Horse Expo in Sacramento on June 6, 7, and 8.
I need to contact that one. I haven't reached out
It's a
to
good
them
it's a good one.
yet.
Yeah, and I'll make a note here so I can mention it to them that, I wonder if we could do something together on the what would that look like if we did a demo. I don't Maybe we can just think about that
I
one
would
for a little
love it.
bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll certainly be open to that.
Well, there is one overlap between the way you approach horses and specifically bits is the softness and the less is more, like the least amount of input that you use can sometimes get the best results, the less pressure you use.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of overlap.
Of Yeah, I believe you should legitimately have a mechanism to calm your horse through the reins.
Mhm.
Just like I could put hands on a horse, hopefully, and have them relax. I should be able to do that from the saddle. That's something that is very
Yeah,
much missing in
yeah.
many people's programs. So,
Well, I drive. Well, my gelding's retired now, and the mare just passed away last winter. But I drove them, as a pair, just for pleasure. And there was a friend here that she had inherited this young Belgian draft horse who apparently was broke to drive, and she had a cart and a harness, but she wanted a little help driving him. So I helped her get used to that. But then she would get him harnessed up. She'd get in the cart and she'd go down the road, and every time he would stop at the same spot and then go back. He wouldn't. She couldn't keep him going, and so she asked if I would ride along with her. And I'm not a trainer, and I just drive my own horses, but I sat in the cart with her, and she had the lines, and we're going, and just as we start to approach the spot where he stops, he started to slow down, and I said, "Here, give me the lines." And I didn't even have any contact. I just had put my hands on the reins on the lines, and the horse kept going. Like he was starting to get worried and do his little dance and turn around. And I had barely touched them, and he kept walking on. It was almost like,
mhm,
wow, it's just like, I don't know. I know they pick up on your intention, really. Horses do. That's my
mhm.
theory. But just, that was a little eye opener for me. So it just
Absolutely.
relaxed the horse. So
Yes,
your
sir.
intention, yeah.
Yeah,
But
give him that little confidence he needed to work his way through and know that it was going to be okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they pick up when you're scared, and then they're scared. So
And probably you noticed him having that trouble sooner than most people would have. So you were
yeah.
able to do a small thing in
Well, she knew the
response to
exact
a
same
small
spot.
thing.
She says, "This is where he starts to get scared and wants to turn around." And I see him start to get a little scared. And I said, "Here, I'll take it." And I just touched him. And then he kept going, And so that it was really interesting. I'm still thinking about that one, but they can tell. I mean,
So,
they can tell,
mhm.
Yeah.
I would also bet that at some point, just like you mentioned, intention, she knows that's coming. So
Hmm.
she has an expectation and she's
Hmm.
transmitting that to him as well,
Not
and
not to get
kind of
too
reinforcing it.
not to get too woo about it, but it's almost like she's telegraphing that to him down
Yeah,
the line. So
absolutely.
yeah.
I've seen people loading horses in trailers. They'll go to, he has a trouble loading in the trailer. Here, let me show you exactly how he has trouble loading in the trailer. And it's like they've trained the behavior rather than being open to the horse actually just loading up, right? They do things to reinforce
Yeah.
stopping, backing, all
That's
of the
where
little problems
timing
that come along.
that's where the timing is so important to learn the timing, how the horse is going to the timing they that the timing I don't know how to describe it, but how they operate, what they respond to. They respond to stuff right away. And if you get the timing right, then it's a complete different message. The opposite of when you get the timing wrong.
Hmm.
So
Yes, sir.
yeah, I realized that we got a dog once, and he would jump up on me, or she would. She was really smart. She would jump up on me, and so uh, just as she starts to jump up at me, I say no, and then she learned she was stay down, and then I pet her. So pretty soon she'd come jump up on me, so I would pet her. She was training me. The dog was
Oh,
training me. She would jump up. I would say, nope. And she would sit down and I'd pet her. Good dog. Uh, but
I like it.
yeah, sometimes
Um,
people need help with that stuff.
yes, sir.
Okay. If you could travel back in time, which period would you visit?
Oh, the Old West, no question.
Yeah. Hmm.
I could, I could say earlier than that too, like Lewis and Clark
Hmm.
sort of time.
Hmm.
There would be some interest for me in that as well. Um,
Just
that
Native
would,
Americans. That's all it would be wild, wildlife and Native
yeah,
Americans.
yeah, there
And
would be like the North American frontier
hmm.
interests me. Alaska and Australia. Those
Hmm.
would kind of be like the places I would want to go and just get turned loose in the wilderness sort of things.
Yeah.
I'm sure other, I have to say like England when we went there this spring, England would not have been on my bucket list of places to visit,
Mhm.
and I really enjoyed it a whole lot more than I was expect. It was prettier than I expected. The food was better than every part of it was way better than I was
Yeah.
expecting to be, just from that aspect of things. So
Mhm.
it may well be that I'd enjoy myself anywhere, but
Mhm.
that would be the time period I think I would prefer. A whole lot less technology and man-made influence and
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
That's that kind of a similar experience in England. It wasn't someplace I would have chosen to go someplace, but because to me it was always, pretty tame and civilized. But then when I started going there and the places we went and did clinics was just beautiful, the
Mhm.
areas we went. And so, I just clicked with it now. And um, my older brother is married to an English woman, and they lived in England for a long time, but now they've lived in France a long time. But they were over in visiting their son in London, my nephew in London, one year while I was there doing. Oh, by the way, little Miss Vicky says to say hi. So,
Uh,
so we were over there doing some courses, and Bob and Jan they met up with us over in Oxfordshire, which is a beautiful part of England, and they met up for lunch. So we went to the one of the pubs, out in the country that we go to when we're there, and we had a really good time. But Jan is from Birmingham, which is kind of an industrial part of England, and I was just going on and on about how I love coming over here, and then we go down to Salisbury, and that part of England's really beautiful too. And she looks at me, says, Jim, you have a warped sense of what England is. You're living in La La Land. That's the only place you go are these, fairy tale places. So her
well,
experience was different than my experience of England.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would have to say we got out of London as fast as we possibly could.
Hmm.
So we spent no time in London at all.
Hmm.
Um, we went and did Stonehenge, and that was first of all it was freezing.
Hmm.
I don't know why, but I was not expecting England to be that cold, and it's
Yeah.
just a bald open hill with 30-mile-an-hour wind and misty rain. So we froze our butts off there. But it's
Hmm.
really just some rocks. I mean,
Hmm.
but we went to Bath, and I really enjoyed that. If you hadn't been to Bath, I would say
Hmm.
that'd be one of the places to go
Uh-huh.
check out. It's mostly a walking
Yeah.
town. In fact, they don't let you drive in it. You have to stop at a car park and ride a
Hmm.
bus into town, and then the
Okay.
bus drops you off, and you walk everywhere. And
Yeah.
so, I like the castles more, the history. That was just the mere fact that you're in a pub having a beer, and that building has been there for 500 years. I mean,
Yeah, really.
there is something to that, you
Hmm.
know. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. I was at a castle in Ireland once, and it was, I don't remember. It was one of the earlier ones where mainly it was just the keep, the tall tower part, the stone part. And then there was some walls around it. But it wasn't a fancy castle. I think it was from like the 12th century or something. And the entrance, like there was a lot more technology back then than we think in engineering. Like, for example, the main doorway into that tower was on a wooden platform with wooden stairs. And the reason for that is if they were under siege, they could burn it down, and there was no way to get up.
hmm
And then the spiral stairways that went up, they turn to the right. They always turn to the right because if you're defending, you're using your right hand with your sword, and so you can defend down,
Hmm.
swat down, but the attackers have to use their left hands because it's, go up. And then
Uh-huh.
all the steps they weren't even. They made them just a little bit off, so it was usually dark in those things, and so the attackers would trip up their stairs. So they thought of all these clever things that we think just were, it's like tits on a horse.
Yep.
We don't think of it.
I'll tell you, this was one of April's absolute bucket list deals. When we left after your event finished, we went that afternoon. It was driving the wrong direction an hour and a half, but it was something she really wanted to see. It's called Whitley
Mhm.
Court. They had a fountain there, and the base of the fountain is probably like 2 acres. And it was, I think, Poseidon on a horse, and
Mhm.
is one of these major centerpieces. But then there were four outer fountains and all. And
Mhm.
in the 17 and 1800s, they had a pump system that would pump a pond on the hill, and we call it
Mhm.
head pressure. It's the same reason why a water tower, the weight of the water, the gravitational pull, you
Mhm.
force it through a pipe. That's hydraulics. This thing, when they filled the pond up and they opened the gates, it would shoot a 1 foot diameter stream of water 120 feet in the air, and it
Mhm.
would last for 8 hours.
Wow.
I mean, that's phenomenal. That
Yeah.
is this is like 5 fire hoses, more than that, because fire hoses only shoot like 30 or 40 feet. This was
Mhm.
120 feet in the air for
Mhm.
8 hours with
Yeah.
no electricity. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a steam engine that pumped the. That's just incomprehensible to me that they could have that kind of thing going on at that
Mhm.
time period with the limited amount of, well, air quotes, knowledge that they had, because
Yeah.
obviously they could do that. They had got to give them a lot more credit than we tend to, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, so
Anyways, well, anything else you wanted to share and talk about? Is this the part where you get to your website and what stuff you have online and what's
yeah,
available
we've got the website. We'll also be working on a subscription side to the website with more candid videos. I was doing that a few years ago, but my website got wiped out and I had to start and
uh, yeah.
rebuild everything. So I'm kind of to the
Mhm.
point where we're ready to start doing that again. So we'll have that open in the next couple of months, probably. There will be a community aspect to it, questions and answers, like a forum thing. More private, won't be. I've had a friend this past year that lost. He had a pretty big Facebook page, and he lost access to it and couldn't get it back, and so he had to start completely rebuilding that.
Mhm.
So that was a little bit of an eye opener to me. I've kind of been focusing on building things that way, and I figured I had better transition more to the website where
Mhm.
I owned the email list and so forth, and it couldn't, some social media guy couldn't hack me or whatever, and then
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
have nothing, So,
Mhm.
uh, so we're working more on having things that way, and the online courses. Also the clinics. I still need to build up the clinics. We'd like to be doing 2 or 3 times as many as we're doing right
Mhm.
now. So
And are you doing
get
those at home or do you travel and do clinics?
almost exclusively travel.
Oh,
Where
okay.
we're at, I don't really have a place that's well set up to do
Mhm.
clinics here. And for whatever, Louisiana just doesn't do clinics.
Okay.
We're not a state that's good at that or values the education. All of the big clinicians have come here, and they tend to come here once because they
Yeah.
don't fill their clinics up, and you can go
Yeah.
to almost any other state and fill your clinic up in five
Yeah.
minutes. Come to Louisiana, and
Hmm.
it's like anything else. The first 80% of the money is the expenses, and the last 20% you don't fill up was what you actually were going to make on the deal,
Right. What you
right?
might have
So,
made.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a weekend wasted for no money. But
Oh,
so
well.
anyway, we do clinics away. We're kind of looking at trying to do some overseas. Maybe Australia will be a possibility in the next year or something like that.
They
Um,
have Equitana as a big expo every 2 years in Melbourne.
mhm.
And I used to
I think
do
they
that. And
just
I'm thinking I should go back again. But you might check into seeing if you can do demos there
yeah.
at Equitana. In
Absolutely. I think
in
they just had it it ended 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe.
So that would mean it's
So,
in 2 years then, the next
yes,
one.
sir.
So
Yeah.
yeah, good time because I think maybe we'll do that one. But it's huge, it's pretty big. And if you do it in, while you're doing clinics over there, then it's helps on the expenses, the travel expenses.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that would be my goal. If I'm going to fly that far, I'd like to spend a month or something, and
Yeah.
make a circuit of the country or something like that in the
Yeah.
process of.
I would save all of my miles every year so that when I went to Australia, I could upgrade to business. It's because it was like from LA, it's like a 14-hour flight or 13 hours or something. And actually it got to the point where I was looking forward to that 13-hour flight because it was, you're in your own seat, you have a little table, you have a TV, they serve you all this nice food, no internet, no phone, no nothing. It was
Uh-huh.
relaxing. I got some good rest as opposed to sitting in, a regular seat. It was, there's no rest there.
Yeah. I
So,
always find like I like some of the downtime at the airports. Just
mhm.
people watching. I crack open. I get a lot of work done while I'm
Yeah,
waiting for my next flight or whatever. That's
yeah.
so we have my wife does stained glass and stuff. She does it in the barn where my office is. So she's in and out of here and not meaning to, but breaking
Hmm.
my concentration every 7 minutes, which is
Hmm.
infuriating. So when I can
Sometimes they
actually,
don't even have to do anything. It's their energy is breaking my wife's energy is breaking my concentration because she's
yeah,
so like get things done. And anyways, you can edit
uh,
that part out if you want.
sure, sure. And then April is she's one of these accident prone kind of women. So she's having a cut or some kind of breaks a toe dropping something or what about every week. And so I'll
Hmm.
hear her scream and I'm immediately running out there to go to her aid and call the
Hmm.
ambulance. And 9 times out of 10, she's just mad at something. It wasn't, she didn't
Hmm.
hurt herself, but so
Yep. Yep. Preaching to the choir here.
yeah,
So.
it is difficult to get those 3 or 4 hour stretches where I can
Yeah.
turn everything off and focus and get work done, like you're saying. Yeah.
Hmm.
But
Okay. So
anyway,
when you do clinics, are they're not all bit clinics, are they? Do you do horsemanship and
yeah, we do a bunch of different formats. We've done, I haven't done one in a few years, but Colt starting, that's a 4 day type of a format. That's one of my
mhm,
favorite ones. We'll do cow working stuff.
mhm,
My background is in cutting horses, so I
uh-huh,
absolutely love it when we get to work cows. That, of course, is dependent on where we're doing the clinic and what's available and so forth.
mhm,
But and then I kind of do a basic, intermediate, and advanced. The advanced ones are, it's difficult to come up with enough people to fill a clinic that are of that level to be working on the minutia
right. Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm,
A lot of people will think they're at that level, but
mhm,
so a lot of times what we'll do, like there's kind of my poster child. There's a pretty big arena that I've gone multiple times, and they're a huge boarding facility and lessons stable. And so we'll go and we'll do like an 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock. I'll work with kids under 10 for a couple of hours, and then we'll do like an intermediate for the middle part of the day, and then I'll do um, advanced training for their instructors from like 5 to 7 in the evening. So it's like three
mhm.
clinics all within the same
Yeah.
day. So I don't
Yeah.
mind splitting that stuff up
Yeah.
really any way it goes out. And I have been asked to do one kind of like you and Mark do, where it's kind of like 1 hour lessons throughout the day. We've done some virtual
Mhm.
clinics like that, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty flexible as far as hosting me goes. I'm there to
Mhm.
work. I don't much care what I'm
Yeah.
working on. Um,
I
so
had a question for you, and where it stems from is Conley knew this guy once when she lived in Santa Barbara, but he was a trainer at SeaWorld in San Diego.
mhm,
I think he worked with seals or something. But in
mhm,
order to become a trainer there, you had to start by training chickens. If you could
mhm,
train a chicken, then they would move you up to something because they weren't chickens apparently aren't easy easy to train, and you really have like timing and subtlety are probably important, I would imagine.
mhm.
Uh, but what would it be like to cut turkeys, a herd of turkeys, cut out a turkey on
I
horseback?
think
Is
it would.
that doable?
Yeah, I've known trainers that used chickens. They had kind of like a bench with a run where the chicken could go back and forth 100 feet or so, and they would
Oh,
work
okay.
the chicken with the horse. I've seen other. It's more common to use a larger animal than a chicken because the horse isn't necessarily going to focus in on the
Well,
chicken so much
yeah, that's what I was
right
thinking.
away.
A turkey would be better because a
Uh-huh.
turkey's bigger, and
Um,
you really would have to be quiet and calm and getting in there and reading that turkey. And your horse probably don't. The horses read the cow, so in order to cut one turkey out.
That would be fun. I have not ever done that. I will say that I do actually have some experience with turkeys, raising turkeys and all.
Mhm.
Turkeys might be one of the dumbest livestock animals that exists. They are
Mhm.
exceedingly dumb. They will. This is a
Mhm.
little known fact, but this is absolutely true. If you raise young turkey poults, you have to raise them in something with a roof because if it rains on them, they will stare up at the sky wondering what the raindrops are and drown.
Oh,
That's how
okay.
dumb they are. So,
Mm,
um, so
okay.
for whatever reason, but
Yeah.
it would be fun trying to cut
Yeah,
a
but that's the
turkey.
challenge for you and
Uh-huh.
your horse is to
I,
train something that not too bright.
I
And
like it.
yeah. And
I've worked
do
buffalo.
they have nipples? Is my next question.
Do turkeys have nipples? Well,
Mhm.
as they are birds and they
Okay,
do
they're
not
not.
produce milk,
Oh, they
I would say
yeah.
no.
Okay, yeah.
Now so this is a funny thing, Jim. I do a lot of outdoor cooking. I've cooked for 70, 80 people in cast iron pots.
Hmm.
One of my favorite recipes is a roast chicken, a lemon and rosemary chicken. And you take the two lemon halves once you squeeze the juice and you put them under the skin on the chicken breast so the chicken has tits.
Okay.
And that is always the big reveal when you pull the lid off
Hmm.
that pot and nobody knows, and all of a sudden the chicken has tits. Like that's a
Hmm.
great moment.
You
That's
can
the yeah.
yeah. That would be in a hen and not a
That's
rooster.
a hint.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Although these days you got to look for the Adam's apple, so who
Yeah,
knows?
right. Well, the conversation's starting to slide downhill. Maybe we should wrap it up with like where people can find your stuff. Well, if they're watching your podcast, I know they know where you are. But
Yeah,
but if we're replaying it too, or we're sending people links from our website, then
yeah. So it's dolphinhorsemanship.com is
mhm,
the main website. We also have thebitcourse.com as a separate website, and that actually has the bit course on it that is for your Masterson method certified practitioners. That can be
mhm.
considered
Continuing
ongoing
education.
education hours
Yeah,
for them.
it's on our
So
continuing education list. So
yeah, so
yeah.
that might be somewhere to check out. And then we've got the typical social media stuff: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of
Mhm.
those things.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, good.
Well,
Well, that was fun talking to you as usual.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm glad you got your eyes fixed and all of that stuff, and
It's
now you got bionic vision. So that's
it's
really awesome.
strange. I'm not used to not wearing glasses. They aren't cleared up 100%. He says it takes a couple months, but it's really weird. I've had this, wear readers to read anything up close, for years, and now it's like I'm wearing my readers, up close. It's just still a little blurry far off there somewhere, but
Hmm.
yep,
Well,
it's pretty cool.
is that going to affect your piloting? You have to go get another eye exam after having that done, or
No, I
you're
don't think
good to
so. I
go?
think I'll just have that little sticker on my driver's license, so and you got to have your driver's license with your with your uh pilot license when you're flying. So um not that they're ever going to pull me over. But
Try and catch me, copper.
if I do have to land on a road somewhere, then it'd be good
Yes,
to have something that shows that I can see what I'm doing. So
you didn't. You landed on it with intention, not with accident.
yeah, I was just testing out my new lenses.
Well,
Okay. Well,
well,
good.
very cool. And we'll in the show notes we'll have links to Jim's stuff as well. You may know him mostly for the horse stuff, but he also has a dog book out. I guess that's been out for maybe a year or
Yeah.
so, using
Hmm.
the same techniques in the canine
Hmm.
world. And he's working on it was a cat book and a lizard book now as
Yeah.
well, or
Yeah.
guinea
Well, that's
pigs.
there's a rumor. It's a
A
rumor.
rumor.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
well,
Well, that
well.
was
Thank you for
fun.
the time.
It
Yeah,
was nice. It
absolutely.
was nice to have a conversation that's just not all about horses. It's about other stuff too. So,
Yeah.
little,
I
yeah.
I think that is part of like the horsemanship clinician thing. There are so many of us. It's kind of a pick your favorite flavor of ice cream. The personality comes
Hmm.
into play there a
Yeah.
little bit. And like I said, I know I'm a little bit of an odd duck, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with the odd duck that I am. At
You're
least
good
I'm
with
not a
you're
dumb
okay with
turkey
a
that.
you're good, okay with a little odd duckness.
Yeah, That's why we have an oddcast, right?
Yep. All right. Well, that was
All right.
fun. I hope to see
Yes,
you in
sir.
person again soon.
Absolutely. Tell Miss Conley I'm sorry I missed her, but
Okay.
Merry Christmas to her and everything too.
Yeah, Merry
So,
Christmas to you guys.
all right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
I wanted to take just a minute on this podcast episode to tell you a little bit about the online course that we are offering now, the Bit Course 2.0, Understanding How and Why Bits Function. You can find it at the website, thebitcourse.com, which will be linked in the show notes. This is a very comprehensive course. We've got two different versions. There's a masterclass version where weekly we have live calls and go over the modules and the study guide. That course has been running 25 to 30 hours over the course of 7 weeks. If you take that version, you're also eligible to go through our BIT certification program and take that test. It's at no additional cost if you want to add consulting about bits to your repertoire of body work or whatever else you might be doing. We also will have an evergreen version that you can take anytime you work at your own pace. It is less expensive. It's also a lot less content. You don't have the weekly Zoom calls with me. Those are going about 2 to 2.5 hours each week. So the masterclass course winds up 25, 30 hours long. The evergreen course you're going to do in 12 to 15, something like that. So check it out. You can go to thebitcourse.com, sign up for the free newsletter. You'll get a 30-minute video on the foamy mouth and all of the implications of that, as well as 5 or 6 articles that I've written regarding bits. Get a feel for the content. This will absolutely be some of the best money and time you have ever spent on your horsemanship journey, I assure you. And it is not discipline specific. We cover just about every aspect of the horse world that you can think of.
We'll see you next week for another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I've been your host, Daniel Dauphin.